All right, this is our concept development for lesson 16. Um, this is focusing on word problems. So today you're not going to get a problem set. We're going to work through the actual problem set during our concept development. So you just need a whiteboard and a marker or a piece of paper and a pencil. All right, so here's our first problem. And when we start looking at word problems, we always want to try and identify the important pieces of it so that we can get rid of the words that we don't need. So read this to yourself, and I want you to write on your whiteboards the important pieces of information here. Okay, so hopefully you have found 126, 4, and then the words that tell us what we need to do, distribute it equally among his 4 children. How much money did each child receive? So that will tell you the operation to use. And based on that, distributing it equally and how much money did each child, you should figure out that it is going to be division. So my problem is going to look like this. My whole amount of money divided by the 4 children. And you can even draw a tape diagram to help you kind of organize your thinking about this. So this whole piece is worth how much? Should be $126. That's what the whole amount is. Okay, now how can we break this up to think about how much money each child should receive? Okay, because there are 4 children, we're going to break this up into 4 even boxes. Pretend that's a perfectly straight line, please. Okay, 4 children, 4 boxes. So we are trying to figure out how much money each child receives. We know that 4 children together receives $126. So how much money does one child get? So now here is where we can go ahead and do our division. So you can use a place value chart if you prefer. You can always draw one out if you're not good at the standard algorithm, or you can use the standard algorithm. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do because it's a little bit faster for me. But like I said, you're welcome to use the place value chart. Okay, so I'm going to ask myself, how many times does 4 go into 12? And I know that 4 goes into 12 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. And make sure when I'm dividing into a 2-digit number, your answer always goes above the ones place. 4 minus 12 is 0. And then I'm going to bring down that 6. Okay, how many times can 4 go into 6? And 4 can go into 6 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. I subtract, and I'm left with 2. Okay, now what do I do? Okay, we can't make a remainder because we're dealing with money and you don't have remainders of money. When we have money, we have decimals. So the decimal in 126 would go right here next to the ones place. That's where it is. We just don't always put it there because we don't need it. Then I'm going to add a placeholder 0. This number still says 126. The 0 doesn't change that this is still worth 126. Now that I have that 0, I can go ahead and bring it down. Now, how many times does 4 go into 20? And that is 5 times. The most important part is to make sure you carry up that decimal. 5 times 4 is 20, and I'm left with 0. So that means I can stop dividing. Now I have 31.5. Okay, am I finished? Nope, because 31.5 is not how we write money. So now you need to write this so that it looks like money. We'll start with a dollar sign. That's what a lot of you will say. But it still doesn't look like money because we don't have just one digit here. Now this is a tricky part. Some of us might think this is 5 cents. Some of us might think this is a different amount. If it's right next to the decimal, the number has to stay right next to the decimal. But remember, I can add a placeholder 0 and it doesn't change it. So it's not 5 cents, it's actually 50 cents. So each child receives $31.50. Okay, let's try another one. So read the problem and underline the most important pieces. I'm going to find how tall Ava is, how tall Lucas is, and there's a couple other things. Olivia is half the height of Lucas, so I need to figure out how tall Ava and Olivia are. So I want you to pause the video and try and work this out, how you could solve this problem, and when you get stuck, unpause the video. Okay, so some things I need to write down, things that I know already. I know that Lucas is 1.78 meters. I know that Olivia is half the height, and I know that Ava is 23 hundredths of a meter taller than Olivia. So I have to figure out how tall Olivia is before I can figure out how tall Ava is. So let's see here. Really, we just need to go step by step. Olivia is, and notice how I go back into the problem and I reread it over and over again until I can be sure I understand what it's asking me. Olivia is half the height. So if I have 1.78 and I want half of that, I'm going to draw a tape diagram again. So here is how tall Lucas is, and I want half of that. So how could I break this whole into a half? That would be boop, right down the middle. So now I have 1/2 and I have 2/2. So what am I dividing by in order to figure out how tall Olivia is? Half means I broke it into 2 boxes. So I would be dividing 1.78 divided by 2. And for this one, I will use a place value chart just so you can see both ways. Okay, so I'm dividing by 2. That's what I said when I drew my tape diagram. So how many times does 2 go into 1? 0 times. It can't. So what I'm going to do with that one is carry it on over to my 7. So now I have 17 here. How many times does 2 go into 17? And 8 is the closest. And 8 times 2 equals 16. When I subtract those two, I'm left with 1. So that means I have 1 left over to carry. So 2 goes into 18 9 times. So my answer is 89 hundredths. So now that's Olivia's height, 89 hundredths of a meter, because that's the unit that we're using. Now the last part is Ava's height. We can't forget about her. Ava is 23 hundredths of a meter taller than Olivia. So what does that mean, taller than? How could I figure out how tall Ava is using Olivia's height? Figure it out, and if you get stuck, unpause. Okay, so it should be 89 hundredths. Taller than means I'm adding, so plus 0.23. Make sure you line up your decimals when you're adding. Always has to be lined up. 9, 10, 11, 12. Carry my 1. That makes 11. When I carry that one, it would go over here. The decimal goes straight down. So Ava is 1 and 12 hundredths of a meter tall. Oh. All right, let's try another one. Mr. Howard can buy a computer with a down payment of $510, and we have some more information there. So pause the video while you underline the important pieces of information here. Here are the important pieces that I found. 510, 8 monthly payments of $35.75. This $699 will be important, but not yet. How much money will he save if he pays cash for the computer instead of paying for it in monthly payments? So basically, I need to figure out the cash for the computer, which right here, $699.99, instead of monthly payments. So I need to figure out how much he's paying altogether if he's going to be making payments. So a down payment, if you don't know what a down payment is, that's when you have to put money down first, a little bit to say, I can afford this, here's what I'm going to pay. So again, I'm going to draw a tape diagram to help me work my brain through this. All right, I've drawn my tape diagram, and I drew this first chunk a little bit bigger because this is worth a larger amount. So that's $510, that was his down payment. And then he made 8 monthly payments. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of $35.75. So in each one of these boxes goes $35.75. Oh, I can't squeeze it. So this is $35.75, this is 35, this is this, all the way down. So how can we figure out what the total amount of this is? Try and solve that out on your own. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is take the monthly payments and multiply it by the 8 months that he's going to do so that we can figure out this big chunk of money here. So set it up as the standard algorithm, but if you want to use an area model, you're welcome to. 8 times 5 is 40. Give me my 4. 7 times 8 is 56, plus 4 more makes 60. 8 times 5 is 40, plus 6 more is 46. And 8 times 3 is 24. 25, 26, 27, 28. 8 and a 2. So I have 28600, but I cannot forget this most important piece, this decimal right here. My decimal in the problem was 2 hops over, so my decimal in the answer goes 2 hops over. 286. So that means this chunk here is worth 286. How can we figure out what the total is? Pause the video while you do it and check your answer when you unpause. All right, so I need to add them because they're part of this tape diagram. They're making up parts of a whole. So I've taken 510, my down payment, plus $286, which is my monthly payments, and I'm going to figure out how much he paid if he does it with monthly payments instead of all at once. And I get $796. Okay, but remember, my actual problem is how much money will he save if he pays cash instead of paying for it in monthly payments? So you need to ask yourself, what am I doing with this number, the monthly payment number versus the cash number? How much will he save? I am looking for the difference between the two. And difference between monthly payments and cash means subtract. So here I have my problem set up. 796 has to go on top because 700 is bigger than 600. And I'm finding the difference between monthly payments and cash. So go ahead and try this problem on your own. Pause it if you get stuck. Okay, the first thing I want to do is add my placeholder zeros here, just so that I know I can take these away from here. So I can't take 9 away from 0, so I'm going to have to borrow. That turns into a 5. This becomes a 10, which I'm going to borrow from, and then this becomes a 10. So 10 minus 9 is 1. 9 minus 9 is nothing. 5 minus 9, oops, can't do that. So I've got to borrow from a friend. That becomes 15. 15 minus 9 is 11, 10, 9, 6. And then I have 8 minus 9. Can't do that, so I've got to borrow again. That becomes 18, and 18 minus 9 is 9. 6 minus 6 is nothing. So you're saving almost $100. $96.01 to pay with cash. Okay, so look at this problem and unpause it once you have identified the key parts. All right, here's what I've identified, and it says use a tape diagram. So I've drawn my tape diagram, and I broke it into 6 bags. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bags, plus a little extra because it says he had 0.35 of a pound left. So I have just like this little, it should be a smaller square, but it didn't end up that way. So I just have this little chunk of leftover, and the whole thing is worth my numbers here, cashews and pistachios. So I have to figure out what is my total for cashews and pistachios. Okay, and total means I add. So I've added them together and I got 10.40. So this whole thing is worth 10.40. I want to figure out how many is in each of these bags. What is the weight of each bag? I missed that part. And each means I'm going to be dividing, but I have this little extra chunk that I have to deal with first. So pause the video while you solve this out. Okay, I subtracted 35 hundredths and then I got 10.05. So this is worth 10.05. Now you need to pause the video again and figure out how much is each one of these worth. What operation are you going to use? Okay, hopefully you did division. I'm dividing it by the 6 bags so I can figure out how much is in one. And when I use the standard algorithm, I got 1.69. pounds. So each one is